The Republican presidential field is winnowing. Vice President Mike Pence recently dropped out, and yesterday, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott was the latest casualty. Tim Scott has said it's not his time. And Tim Scott is correct. It wasn't his time. He lacked the forcefulness, the ability to speak extemporaneously, but more importantly, the clear convictions necessary to be the president that follows and ends the Trump era, which has dominated American life for the last 7 years. Despite the fact that President Biden has been in the Oval Office for 3 years, the simple truth is Donald Trump remains the dominant figure in American life. There can be no dispute about that, no debate about that. He is at the locus of a billion-dollar Trump industrial complex. He is covered ubiquitously by the news media that profits off of him. He is at the center of a billion-dollar grift of small-dollar fundraising and telemarketing cons. And all around him are groups like the Lincoln Project that need Donald Trump to survive. Without Donald Trump, grifters like Rick Wilson and Reed Galen wouldn't be able to pocket 93 cents of every dollar they raise from old ladies and pensioners who think they're helping democracy. Nothing is on the level. It's all a scam. And that's what voters see. It's why they have no trust, no faith, no belief in so many important institutions. Over and over again, they've been lied to and let down. The Republican Party has turned hostile to the precepts of American democracy. And you can see this on the debate stage with all of the candidates that are remaining. Let's go through them. But first, let's talk about the main difference between them, because there is a profound one. Every single candidate who was on a Republican debate stage this year is deeply flawed. Every single one of them subordinated their good sense, their common sense, their decency for the purposes of trying to attain political power by getting behind the worst person and the biggest threat to the American Constitution since the Confederate States of America. Chris Christie stood behind Donald Trump as the first major credible presidential candidate who left the race in 2016. He stood there like a Stepford wife, gazing at Donald Trump. And so these many years later, that Chris Christie is right does not immunize him from that central fact. But put Chris Christie aside, because Chris Christie is materially different than Nikki Haley and every other Republican on that stage. Mike Pence, along with Nikki Haley, along with Vivek Ramaswamy, in fact, along with every single candidate on the stage, raised their hands when they were asked a question by Bret Baier. The question was a simple one. Would they continue to support Donald Trump no matter what, even if he was convicted of multiple felonies? Remember, who's asking the question here? Bret Baier, the Fox News anchor, terrified of his audience. He did not want to tell them on election night the truth, that Joe Biden had won the election and that Donald Trump was defeated. But nevertheless, years after the insurrection that Trump incited, the question is asked, and let's watch the response.
If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
Every single person blindly, with the exception of Asa Hutchinson and Chris Christie raises their hand. They will be with Trump forever, including presumably Mike Pence, the man Trump tried to hang. The biggest difference between Nikki Haley and Chris Christie in this moment is the most obvious one. Chris Christie is broken free from Donald Trump. The bonds of attachment are gone, but Donald Trump still owns Nikki Haley. She hasn't repudiated that. Her hand remains in the air. How can a person say, I have the judgment, the wisdom, and the experience to be the commander-in-chief of the most potent military in world history and command the world's largest and deadliest nuclear arsenal? But I'm still for Donald Trump, a man who invoked the rhetoric and language of Hitler and Mussolini this weekend. He called his political opponents vermin. He's dehumanizing his fellow American citizens. He has plans to build massive concentration camps, deportation camps, where millions and millions and millions of people will be arrested off of the streets and herded into them. Does that sound like America to you? Are you concerned at all that Donald Trump is talking about locking up his political opponents, imprisoning them? Because Mike Pence, he doesn't seem to be concerned. Mike Pence hasn't put his hand down yet either. And of course, neither has the demagogic Vivek Ramaswamy, paper thin, ignorant, dangerous, utterly fraudulent. Each of these candidates is auditioning for a role in the next Trump show, which will be the last show in America. Because Donald Trump has made clear the destruction of the American Republic is necessary for him to achieve his vengeance, for him to achieve his revenge. He's coming. He's saying the quiet part out loud. And here's the scary truth. If the election were tomorrow, Donald Trump would be elected 47th president of the United States. Where is the White House this weekend? Where is the response to Donald Trump calling his fellow Americans vermin? What do you do to vermin? You exterminate them. You literally call an exterminator. It's what Hitler called the Jews: vermin, rats, subhumans. And then he went on to murder 6 million of them and 5 million others. All the subhumans, all the vermin. This language is a moral outrage in the United States in the 21st century. It is unacceptable in that it is coming from a former president of the United States, an indicted and accused felon, a man who is a candidate, is appalling. It's dangerous. And it should be the occasion for a 5-alarm fire across every corner of this country. That he said it on Veterans Day is a further abomination. The American soldier takes an oath to the Constitution of the United States. 1 million Americans from the Greens at Lexington and Concord, at the first instance of revolution, from Gettysburg to Normandy to San Juan Hill to the Argonne to Pork Chop Hill and to Pleiku to Fallujah and Baghdad. 1 million Americans through the generations have given what Lincoln called the last full measure of devotion to an idea and to an ideal that Donald Trump is trying to burn down. You have a responsibility to stop it. You are an American citizen, and thus you have an obligation to participate and to stop it. You are an American, and as such, You are obligated to stand with your brothers and sisters of all races, of all creeds, of all nationalities, and to say, no, we are Americans, and we will not permit this. We will not permit our inheritance to be stolen. We are trustees of an experiment that will endure. It will be handed to our children and to our grandchildren stronger, more durable, and more resilient than the democracy we were born into. This must be all of our pledges. It is not a partisan statement. It is an American one. It is a necessary one because our country is under threat from within. A domestic enemy has arisen, and he should not be underestimated. He is coming for all of us. It's time to wake up.